Sometimes I sit in my blue chair trying to remember what it was like in the spring of 1950 before the burning coal entered my life. When poetry entered my life, when the spirit entered, when I suddenly self-consciously said, I am a poet, God save me. I didn't live in Paris for nothing and walk with Jack Gilbert down the wide sidewalks thinking of Hart Crane and Apollinaire. And I didn't save the picture of the two of us moving through a crowd of stiff Frenchmen and put it beside the one of Pound and Williams, unless I wanted to see what coals had done to their lives too. I think of Gilbert all the time now, what we said on our long walks in Pittsburgh, how lucky we were to live in New York, how strange his great fame was in my obscurity, how we now carry the future with us, knowing every small vein and every elaboration.
This is about having a friend in poetry, and it's sort of, they're not exactly young, but they're not exactly old either. It's a poem of young poets walking through Paris. One is doing better than the other. His great fame, my great obscurity.
The coal has taken over. The red coal is burning between us, and we are at its mercy. As if a power is finally dominating the two of us, as if we're huddled up watching the black smoke and the ashes, as if knowledge is what we needed. And now we have that knowledge. Now we have that knowledge. I was going on 40. I was no longer this young man with a mustache and a cigar. I was, approaching middle age, and there were two generations of poets who were talking to each other, so to speak, in a language I didn't even understand. I'm talking about networking, I'm talking about friendship, names of magazines. But most young poets now have an insurance. They're teaching, they're getting grants, they're carefully controlling things. They get their degree in poetry. We had no degrees in poetry. They'll have the same problem.
They're going to have the same problem.
They'll have it at some point.
We live in a country that doesn't care about poetry, and we give our lives to that.
It does not care. I went onto a rant last night. And you're not allowed to say anything bad against the culture. We learned that in 7th grade in civics.
What's valued is power and money and the incessant consumerism, but poetry makes you stop and be. And that's lost in our culture. It's lost.
That if you want to understand a culture, you go to their poets. You certainly don't go to their presidents or their public relations people or their generals or their businessmen or, alas, not even their farmers. You go to their poets. It's a great pleasure to be here among friends instead of enemies. And I have some idea about what I'm going to do, but not altogether. Because if I knew altogether what I was going to do, then I know when I was going to die. Although I really do know when I'm going to die, but I'm not going to tell anybody. Well, I don't want to make you unhappy. Well, I don't want to make you happy. How you doing, Shorty? Okay. Well, I'm going to start by reading, I'll read about 8 or 9 poems. It's a function of poetry to make us feel good, to make us feel elated, to give us a sense of beauty, to make us give us dignity, to show how we are, on the one hand, different from the other, the animals and the trees that surround us, and the insects, but on the other hand, we are just like them. I don't know, it has all these functions. But it's mostly to ennoble the human spirit, so that we can behave like human beings again. And that's maybe ultimately what, did somebody just die down there? I heard somebody yell.
Well,
and you said that
to ennoble the spirit, you have to be the whole spirit. You have to allow everything. And to ennoble the spirit, you can't deny the body.
This is a picture of my mother and me. And look at me sitting there upright on that sofa. This is in Miami, a little Jewish city in Florida. And in the back it says Ida. Ida, I idolize you. Ida, dee-da-doo. The other thing was I grew up in darkness, dirt, and ignorance, and poverty, quasi-poverty, lower middle class in Pittsburgh, and made my way slowly but stubbornly to a place of quasi-knowledge and power of sorts.
He's lived a long life, and he's seen a lot of stuff. He's been everywhere, and he's seen a lot of stuff. His heart's been broken for most of his life, probably. Well, his sister died when he was like 7 or 8, you know? So how do you turn that broken heart into a poem or into art?
Now this is a picture of me and my sister. It says here Sylvia in 1930. I was obedient, moderate, all the things I'm not now. And Sylvia was the wild one, and she suddenly got meningitis, spinal meningitis, and died like that. She was 9 years old, I was 8. I was never allowed to talk about it. That was the rule in our family. Clothes were all thrown away. Somehow I got hold of this one photograph. All the photographs of her were destroyed. Sylvia, in a way, was my muse. In a way, her death became the motif and the stimulating force, the sense of loss. Not that one doesn't lose a sister. My God, people die. Across the space, peopled with stars, I am laughing while my sides ache for existence, it turns out, is profound. Though the profound, because of time, it turns out is an illusion. And all of this is infinitely improbable given the space, for which I gratefully lie in 3 feet of snow, making a shallow grave. I would have called an angel otherwise, and think of my own rapturous escape from living only as dust and dirt, little sister. So I escaped living only as dust and dirt.
Well, Stern is just an American original, incredibly passionate, intense, imaginative, energetic poetry. Jerry's one of our greatest living poets.
He's incredibly generous, outrageous. His gestures are generous. His love of life is comprehensive.
Beautiful. Hey man, this is heaven. This is as good as it gets. James Joyce in Finnegan's Wake, redoing Aesop's fables, called it the ant and the grasshopper. Of course, the story of the ant and the grasshopper chews away, then he starves in the winter. The ant puts the stuff in the bank, he buys a 401k. Well, I was half grasshopper, half ant. And I couldn't be at peace either way. There's a poem of mine called The Dancing. I'll read a few lines of it in German. It's a Holocaust poem. And it's called The Dancing. And there is a reference here to my father doing the old dance. You know that dance? Where they make farting sounds under the arm? In all these rotten shops, and all this broken furniture and wrinkled ties and baseball trophies and coffee pots, I've never seen a post-war Filco with the automatic eye, nor heard Ravel's Bolero the way I did in 1945 in that tiny living room on Beechwood Boulevard, nor danced as I did then, my knives all flashing, my hair all streaming, my mother red with laughter, my father cupping his left hand under his armpit, doing the dance of old Ukraine. The sound of his skin, half drum, half fart. The world at last a meadow, the 3 of us whirling and singing, the 3 of us screaming and falling as if we were dying, as if we could never stop. In 1945, in Pittsburgh, beautiful, filthy Pittsburgh, home of the evil melons, 5,000 miles away from the other dancing in Poland and Germany. Anderen Tanz in Poland und Deutschland. O God of mercy, O wild God, O Gott der Gnade, O wilder Gott.
This extraordinary moment of dancing, which is really the liberation from the camps in 1945. And suddenly you realize that this moment in Pittsburgh, this paradisial moment in Pittsburgh, is also an infernal moment, or coming out of an infernal moment in Europe. And then you realize suddenly that it's the same family. And that's a kind of, I would say, just an extraordinary linkage, and rare for an American poet.
We remember the famous words, after the Holocaust, after Shoah, there can be no poetry. And the alternative is, after Shoah, there can be only poetry. How about no parades, no cannons, no atom bombs? How about no concentration camps, the way the United States runs concentration camps now? Is another way of thinking of this. Oh, Reggie, I know my lesson well. La-dee-da-dee-da-da. La 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 la.
We were having dinner, the Levine and Franny, Eddie Hirsch, and sitting to Jerry's right was the fiction writer Mary Morris. I was on Jerry's left, and I got up to go to the ladies' room. And I came back, and Eddie is going, Anne-Marie, Anne-Marie, Jerry bit Mary. You can't watch him, he's already bitten somebody. It turns out that Mary had asked him about having Tourette's. Jerry has Tourette's. And
You know I have Tourette's. I told you.
he said something like, I just do things spontaneously, and he turned around and bit her on the arm.
I have two poems called with the name Stern in them. One's called Original Stern Country, the other's called Stern Country. This is a poem about teaching, for I've been a lifelong teacher. And in the second half of my life, I spent most of my time teaching poetry workshops. And when I was 20 years old, or 23, if you met Auden or Pound or Yeats, say, or Eliot or Robin Penn Warren, and he said hello to you, that would keep you going for 10 years. Now it's, hi, Jer. You met me the other day, in the coffee house. Can I send you 4,000 poems? And can I borrow $25? For sleeplessness, your head face down, your shoulder blades floating, and aspirin is a last resort when death is threatening. Though lately, I have experimented with numbers, and as for dreams, I've never been boring, and only once did I bite the arm of a woman sitting next to me, and I should be careful. She might have a handwritten poem or a memoir, and didn't I bite her arm? And aren't we both poets, though? I warn her that I make gurgling noises and twitch in both legs and make the bed jump, and I'm exhausted from looking at poems, and I don't care about her nuts and bolts, and she has to go to the wilderness herself and fuck the exercises. Let her get smashed by a Mack truck, then she'll be ready to mourn. I just had to clarify.
You liked her arm.
Actually, she had a very attractive upper arm.
He's uncontainable. He doesn't contain himself. They didn't make him take that class when he was young, or he didn't do well in deportment. But that's one of the things he loved, because essentially the spirit is generous. An overflow of feeling, a sense of the inexhaustibility of riches in the world actually has its counterpart in the form of a poem, which is long-lined, overflowing, a generous instrument.
Well, thank you so much for coming tonight. It just seems so strange to just end it. We should now dance or sing songs or weep or have a moment of silence or an hour of silence.
What do you do there now?
You send out notices? Are you Carol?
I'm Carol.
Hi, Carol.
So now,
You better be Carol.
So now, how can I ask you to read my poems?
Send them to me.
You
89.
stole my thunder.
seemed to me to be like reading the line breaks.
Going to poetry readings in my area.
So maybe Stern Country is like the place where people come with their broken hearts and mend something, you know, craft something out of their wounds.
He's really a poet of the egotistical sublime. The I stands in for the natural world and for the whole world, and that he's experiencing everything himself.
He knows how to get into some particular zone or groove of that's entirely his own and entirely unique and deeply human. I think he has earned a place, certainly in contemporary poetry, and time will tell us about the permanency.
And I hang on. I'm 82 now. I'm hanging on. I'm going to keep living till I do it. I have to do it. It's like a sense that I have to do it and that I've not done it. You know, an artist really doesn't really know the answer. He writes or he paints partly because he doesn't know the answer. More than other people, an artist doesn't know the answer or feels that he doesn't. And he spends his life doing what he does because of that, in part. Sometimes I think I lived the wrong life. It wasn't poetic enough, that I was too much a family man. I was too much involved with working and for others, and stuff like that. I like what Edith Piaf said. She said, moi, je ne regrette rien. Me, I don't regret nothing. Da, 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 da. But you can't go around saying you regret nothing. What gives me sustenance and pleasure, I've been recently reading some of my own older poems. I don't do that a lot. And I was saying, damn, some of these poems are good. Did I write that? How did I write that good poem? And that gives me kind of victory over regret. Me trying to understand, say when, say whither, say what. Say me with a pencil walking, say reading the dictionary, say learning medieval Latin, reading Spangler, reading Whitehead, William James, I loved him. Swimming breaststroke and thinking for an hour, how did I get here? Or thinking in line, say the 69 streetcar, or 68 or 67 Swissvale, that would take me elsewhere. Me with a textbook reading the pre-Socratics, so badly written, whoever the author was. Me on the floor of the lighted stacks and sitting cross-legged, walking afterwards through the park or sometimes running across the bridges and up the hills, sitting down in our tiny dining room, burning in a certain way, still burning. You know, I gotta tell, this is a story, but I don't have time to tell you. My friend Al Jackson, who I taught with 50 years ago, he was in Egypt, wearing a big leather coat down here. It's 110 degrees. He's having tea in the morning with these Egyptians and he's about to cross the Suez, about to cross, I guess it's Suez, to go on. And they said to him, big guy, he played in the Rose Bowl for Michigan, played end in 1949. He said, one more song, Mr. Jackson. And he gets on the boat, and there's a guy naked practically, about to pole him. And he couldn't think of what to sing. Finally, he's singing, he's at the boat pulling off. We're in Egypt, 1950, and he's singing, give my regards to Broadway, remember me to Herald Square. Tell all the gang at 42nd Street, I will soon be there. And he's singing this song. Incredible. Al Jackson. Goodbye, guys.
Thanks for coming.